So we are about to get started. Let's talk about building your own lab environment. To pass the RHCSA OpenStack exam, you need to practice a lot. And to practice a lot, you need to build your own lab environment. The purpose of this lab environment is to create a minimal setup, not a complete setup. A complete setup of OpenStack easily includes more than 10 different machines where every machine is playing a different role. That's not what we are going to do here. We are going to create a minimal setup which allows you to run it on top of any environment. I recommend using virtual machines. The advantage of using virtual machines is that you can take snapshots. If things go wrong, you just revert to the previous state of the snapshot. And this also allows you to store different states of your configuration. On server 1 is going to be the most essential server in the complete configuration that we are using. On server 1, initially we are going to create an AIO setup. That is an all-in-one setup. That means that you've got this amazing cloud that is running on one virtual machine only. Of course, that doesn't relate to anything that you will see in real life, but the only thing you need to do for this course is play with the different components that are available. So that is why we are going to set up server 1 as the AIO setup. Later on, it's going to be the controller node. The controller node is a node in the environment that is taking care of some of the key cloud functions. Server 1 is a server that has the biggest hardware requirements. You need 4 gigabytes of RAM, 10 gigabytes of disks, and an installation of CentOS 7 or later. I would always recommend to do an update on the CentOS software before starting the OpenStack installation, because developments are going so fast. Now about the 4 gigabytes of RAM. 4 gigabytes of RAM may seem a lot, but you will notice if more and more components are starting to be used on top of your OpenStack environment, you are really going to need this 4 gigabytes of RAM. If you don't have enough RAM, services won't be able to start, or even worse, you will get the out-of-memory killer being activated to kill some processes that are not used very frequently, and you really will get an unstable system. So, if anything, make sure that you've got 4 gigabytes of RAM for server 1. Also, you want to use 2 network interfaces. And that is because software-defined networking is an important part in OpenStack configuration. There is one network interface that is going to be configured to face the outside world, the public interface. The other network interface is going to be used to face the inside world. I will have much more information about that in lesson 10 when we explore software-defined networking and how it works. Server 2 is used for specific purposes in some labs. If you don't have a lot of RAM available, you could do without server 2 for most of the labs. You will need it in only 3 or 4 of the labs that we are going to use here. Server 2 is going to be used as a Nova compute node. That is the node that is going to host virtual machines. And in order to accomplish this task, it needs a minimum of 1 gigabyte of RAM, 10 gigs of disk space, and CentOS installed. Also for this server, I recommend using 2 network interfaces. And then optionally, there is a workstation. This is optional because the workstation is just going to be used to interface with the server 1 and the server 2. It is used to control the cloud environment. You could run this from your host operating system as well, if you have a limited amount of RAM in your computer, because it takes away the need to install an additional virtual machine. Personally, I like using a dedicated workstation because it allows you to keep one environment completely dedicated to running OpenStack, so that it doesn't interfere with anything that you are doing on a daily basis on your workstation. This workstation, if you are going to install it, give it 1 gigabyte of RAM, 10 gigabytes of disk space, and use a CentOS server with GUI installation pattern. Oh, and by the way, on server 1 and server 2, you can just use the basic installation of CentOS. And this is what your lab environment should look like. Before getting started with the lab environment, I want to mention one important item. If you install CentOS 7, network device names will be dynamically created based on their positioning on the main board in your computer. The result is that you will have device names that may look like ENO1677736. That is not very convenient. In this lab guide, I'm using ETH0 and ETH1 as a network device names. If you want to do the same, you should be using net.ifnames equals 0 as well as BIOS devname equals 0 as startup parameters while installing your Linux distribution. I will show you how that works in the upcoming demo as well. After installation, you also want to make sure that these parameters are included in the grub configuration. The grub configuration is an etc default grub, and to write the configuration, you would use the command grub2-mkconfig -o /boot/grub2/grub.cfg. That makes sure that your network cards come back as ETH0 and ETH1 and nothing else. So to help you understand a little bit of the lab environment, let's have a look at my lab environment, which I've created in VMware Fusion. So you can see that I've got a couple of virtual machines, an RDO server 1, server 2, and I even installed an RDO server 3 just to play around a little bit. I mean, you can be as flexible as you want. If you want to install 20 servers, that's fine as well. And I've got my workstation. Now let me start by starting up the RDO server 1. And let me do the same for the other servers as well. And I'm bringing up the workstation, and that's going to be it. You will be probably hearing the fan of my computer hitting in, because the computer will start working real hard right now. Let's see where we are at with the server 1. I know this console screen doesn't look very good, but I just want to give you the required information, which is IP-A. What we see here is a server where OpenStack has already been configured for a part. I just want to give you an impression of the lab environment. You can see ETH0 and ETH1, and you can also see that the IP address configuration is somewhere else on the BREX. I'm going to explain all of that later. The important part right now is the IP address, which is 192.168.4.10. And I'm going to use that to make a remote connection. So from the console of my host computer, I'm just logging in as root to 192.168.4.10 with my very secret password. And here we can see the interface of the most important server, which is server 1. So what I wanted to show you right now is a free-m. You can see this is a server where OpenStack components are running, and it is using 2 gigabytes of RAM right now. So you could really squeeze it into 3 gigabytes, but you will notice that at some points it will go beyond 3 gigabytes and you will run out of RAM. So better don't do that. Also, I wanted to show you the contents of the etc default grub file. So what you can see in this grub file is the options net.ifnames is 0 and BIOS devnames. BIOS devname is 0. This is what is making sure that your network cards really are ETH0 and ETH1 and nothing else in that. If you need to apply those changes to your network configuration, you will need to run grub2-mkconfig followed by the option -o followed by the output file where it needs to be written to, which is /boot/grub/grub.cfg. I'm not going to do it here because I've already done it. Also, you can include those 2 options while installing your OpenStack server. Let me show that as well. I'm opening the VMware interface and I'm going to start an installation so that you know where to put those options. So I've just started the installation of a CentOS 7. In order to include the options for the network card, you would select Install CentOS 7 and press the Tab key. This will show you the boot line that the kernel is using. So in there, type net.ifnames equals 0 and BIOS devname equals 0 as well. And there you press enter, and that will make sure that the installation is started with the correct options. I'm not going to show you installation here because you are supposed to already know how to install a basic instance of CentOS. So now that we know what is needed to set up a basic environment, let's move on and talk about OpenStack itself some more.